J'ouvre les portes. Let the doors be open. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank the wonderful people of Vaughan Woodbridge.
Residents of Vaughan Woodbridge, they are an inspiration for the work that I do here in the House. Their perseverance and commitment to growing our community is what powers this diverse, forward-looking, and vibrant community. I witnessed these qualities firsthand through my volunteers. More than a team, we became a family, and I'm grateful to every single one of them.
They spared no effort in getting me reelected and allowing me to come here to represent them in Ottawa because they know that we need to take action now to build a healthier, more inclusive, and fair Canada. A Canada that will put their interests first.
A strong local voice. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to represent this riding of Vaughan Woodbridge.
Faces all challenges head on, and we are ready to do our part in building a stronger, healthier, and more prosperous Canada. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, for decades, Pitt Meadows and Maple Ridge residents have been well served by the Ridge Meadows RCMP. The men and women of this detachment have always worked very hard to serve and protect our communities, often through challenging times. Right now, along with other first responders and emergency service providers, they've been heavily engaged with the major flooding hammering British Columbia. Our communities are rapidly growing, and with that, growth has come new needs for policing. Last week, I was honored to join RCMP officials, Katzie First Nations, Mayors Dingwall and Morden, and councillors in the announcement of a new RCMP detachment in Pitt Meadows. It will more than double the number of on-duty officers and create positions to improve safety and community outreach. Congratulations to all those who made this project happen, and many thanks to the Ridge Meadows RCMP for their outstanding service.
The Honourable Member for Surrey Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians living in coastal regions from east to west have been hit hard by extreme weather in the last few days, from Nova Scotia and Newfoundland to all the way in British Columbia. My sincere condolences to everyone from coast to coast who has been impacted by the flooding, damage to homes, farms, livestock, business and infrastructure, and to those who have had to leave their homes. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank just a few of the many local organizations in Surrey that leapt to action as water levels rose in British Columbia last week. Akal Seva Foundation, Guru Nanak Free Kitchen, Guru Nanak Food Bank, Gurdwara Duknawaran, Gurdwara Dishmesh Darbar, Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara Khalsa Aid, Maskeen Farms, and the members of the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board. Thank you to everyone who stepped up to support your neighbours in need and thinking of all those hoping to get back to their homes and communities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I want to pay tribute to the exceptional work of two organizations, CAFAL, the Feminist Women's Center of Action in Longueuil, and La Traversée in Longueuil. These two organizations worked together to put together the very first CALAX in Longueuil. A CALAX is a feminist approach to provide direct assistance and support to the victims and their loved ones when it comes to sexual and domestic violence. We're talking about prevention, awareness, training, mobilization, and advocacy. Before the pandemic, we know that these cases were rising and had been for 2 years. There are or were 493 such cases in Longueuil, and it's unthinkable that there was no such organization before. I'm very proud of this mobilization. The CALAX in Longueuil works for and with women. It provides services to women and girls over the age of 14 in Longueuil and neighboring cities. On behalf of all the women who are victims of sexual and domestic violence, bravo and thank you. The Honourable Member for Pontiac. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, I had the pleasure of launching an initiative for a green and prosperous Pontiac. It's an integrated approach to deal with climate change in our communities.
Mr. Speaker, we must act locally. As MPs, we could mobilize our communities and support them achieving net zero emission by 2050. This is why I take this time, Mr. Speaker, to thank the 18 mayors of the MRC of Pontiac and its warden, Jane Toller, for adopting last Wednesday a resolution to support this initiative. J'ai très hâte de travailler.
I look forward to working with all our other leaders, both provincially and regionally, and organizations like Credo. And I want to thank the General Director, Benoit Delage, for his support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, China is by far and away the largest emitter of GHGs and has made no hard commitment to reduce them over the next decade. You would think that this would be of concern to the Prime Minister, yet when he jet-set it off to the farcical COP26, the Prime Minister instead launched his latest attack on Canadian energy, committing to a hard emissions cap. With Canada contributing a mere 1.5% of global GHGs compared to China's 27%, this will have virtually zero impact in reducing global GHGs. But what it will do is kill good-paying Canadian jobs while increasing the cost of energy for everyday Canadians.
That's right.
Attacking clean Canadian energy while giving the world's largest emitter a free pass. There is one word to describe this policy: insane.
The honourable member for Egmont.
Mr. Speaker, a few of the qualities that form the backbone of my community of Egmont is a sense of quiet confidence, determination, hard work, and deep respect for community. Those qualities have sustained Egmont over many years and have also built a deep sense that hard work will help to overcome any challenge faced. Some years ago, when I served in the government of PEI, the federal government of today closed the air base in Summerside. In response, the entire province banded together and, led by the hard work of Summerside, developed real solutions that eventually turned into a thriving aerospace sector. In many ways, Egmont responded in the same way to COVID, with a belief that everyone was part of the solution, and as a result, we have had an extremely successful fight against the virus. Now we face a new challenge in the form of a potato fungus that is hurting our potato farmers. Egmont is responding with solidarity and determination, and like the challenges of the past, we will emerge in a better position to sell our first-rate products to a world that values the products we grow.
The honourable member for Oakville North, Burlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gun control is a women's issue. During the 16 days of activism to end violence against women, we must recognize that access to firearms by an intimate partner increases the likelihood of femicide by 500%. Darian Haley Henderson Bellman, a young woman from Halton region, was shot and killed in an act of gender-based violence. Allison Irons' daughter, Lindsay Wilson, was murdered by her ex-boyfriend who used his firearms license to purchase the weapon he used to kill Lindsay. On December 6th, we will remember the women who were shot at Polytechnique simply because they were women. All of these young women would have changed their communities and our country for the better, but their lives and the lives of so many others were cut short by violent men and violent weapons. Let us remember them and commit to taking action on gun control in a world without gender-based violence. Thank you, Mr.
The honourable member for Coast of Bays Central, Notre Dame.
Mr. Speaker, each year 11 Canadian students are selected to join a class of Rhodes Scholars to study at Oxford University in London, England. Only 2 are chosen from Atlantic Canada. Established in 1903, the Rhodes Scholarship is the oldest graduate scholarship in the world and is considered the most prestigious. It is the intention to promote unity and to instill a sense of civic-minded leadership and moral fortitude in future leaders. This year, Jane Hutchings from the great province of Newfoundland and Labrador is a recipient of this distinguished honour. Jane is a graduate of Queen's University with a BCom and a graduate diploma in accounting from the Smith School of Business. Through a partnership with MyTex and the Community Revitalization Research Program and the Smith School of Business, Ms. Hutchings researched community involvement and cultural custodianship on Fogo Island. Mr. Speaker, please join me in congratulating Jane Hutchings on her tremendous accomplishment.
The honourable member for Sackville, Preston, Chiswick Cook.
Merci, monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since 1988, December 1st has been designated World AIDS Day. It's an opportunity for people around the world to come together to fight against HIV and show their support to people living with HIV and remember those who are no longer with us. I want to thank the researchers and doctors for the medical advancements that have revolutionized prevention and treatment of HIV. Furthermore, I would like to invite all the members in this House and all Canadians to join me in thanking the people in our communities who are working to prevent HIV, eliminate stigmatization and all forms of discrimination, and help people to get the treatment, care, and support that they need. Thank you.
The honourable member for Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, our community is mourning with yesterday's news of the passing of former Liberal Member of Parliament and Mayor Bob Kilger. A pillar of the local sports scene, including time as head coach of the Cornwall Royals, Bob also spent time as an NHL referee. He served for 16 years as Member of Parliament in our community and later 2 terms as Mayor of the City of Cornwall. Mr. Speaker, you don't win 6 elections or serve as Chief Government Whip or Deputy Speaker of this House or as a Mayor without having solid leadership skills like Bob had. Always a good ambassador for our region, Bob was known for his style of bringing people together. I always appreciated his good nature and positive resolve when we both served as mayors in our region. Bob made a positive contribution over nearly 30 years in public life. We thank him for his contributions and offer our heartfelt condolences to his wife, Courtney, and his family, as we remember an effective community leader and member of this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, this holiday season, I am grateful beyond words for all those who have supported my journey in public service. I want to thank my family for their steadfast support and encouragement, and thank my incredible team and staff who worked tirelessly on my re-election campaign. All members in this House know it takes a team to get us here, and I'm so grateful for the incredible people on my team. And I want to thank the constituents of Kildonan St. Paul for once again entrusting me with the great responsibility and honour of representing them in Parliament. This Parliament, I'll be working hard to heal divisions and bring Canadians together for affordability for seniors and families, for public safety, and for a thriving economy with jobs and opportunity for every Canadian, every region of this country. And to conclude, Mr. Speaker, I wish my constituents and every member in this House togetherness and love this holiday season. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and good health, joy, and prosperity in the new year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Mr. Speaker, with new variants of COVID-19 being detected in Canada, Canadians understand that we're not out of the woods yet. While everyone has been touched by the pandemic, those living with low incomes have often been the first to lose their jobs. We've seen women and gender-diverse individuals take on the majority of caregiving and household responsibilities. Women-led businesses are still being hit hard. Rates of domestic violence have risen during the pandemic, and little supports have followed. In response, frontline organizations in my riding of Nanaimo Ladysmith have led the way in supporting women and gender-diverse individuals during these difficult times. As we continue to live with the pandemic, we must ensure that the necessary supports this government provides lift up all women and diverse gendered individuals so no one is left behind. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, it is with great sadness that I rise to mark the passing of Marie-Claire Blais, the remarkable writer who was a pioneer and a great Quebecer. Ms. Blais devoted her entire life to using her incandescent pen to write one of the most significant works in Quebec literature. She was only 20 when La Belle Bête, or Mad Shadows, was published in 1959. It was a shocking first novel that set her apart from her peers and caused American critic Edmund Wilson that she was possibly a genius. Over 60 years later, impossible to ignore her, she wrote A Season in the Life of Emmanuel. This masterpiece won her the prestigious Médicis Award in 1966, one of the 40 awards that would punctuate her career, including Quebec's National Order. Marie-Claire Blais died yesterday at the age of 82. On behalf of the Bloc Québécois, I want to offer my most sincere condolences to her loved ones and pay tribute to the cultural legacy she has left us. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Peterborough, Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I asked on my Facebook who has started or finished their Christmas shopping. My inbox quickly filled with heartbreaking messages from my constituents who have no money to buy food or rent, never mind Christmas presents. Our economic crisis is a mental health crisis. How can we help people if they can't afford groceries? How can we help people if they can't afford a house or rent? How can we help people if they're so stressed about paying bills they can't sleep at night? The average Canadian carries a debt of over $70,000. What a burden to carry. What a burden to leave to our children. The cost of everything is going up. Wages are stagnant, and the Prime Minister just shrugs his shoulders. The biggest crisis we're facing, Mr. Speaker, is the cost of living. Conservatives are not going to just accept this as just inflation. We will fight for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Mr. Speaker, Nav Bhatia is best known as the official Raptors superfan. He has not missed a single home game since the inception of the team in 1995. With his endearing love of the sport, Nav created the Nav Bhatia Superfan Foundation with the goal to unite people of all ages and backgrounds through basketball. He introduced so many racialized children and youth in the GTA to the Raptors. In 2019, Canada's team became NBA champions and fulfilled one of Nav's dreams of winning the ultimate prize in basketball. Nav uses his influence as a superfan to combat racism, to bridge our differences, and to promote our diversity. Nav often says, "Canada is heaven on earth. Everything I have is because of this beautiful country." Nav Bhatia is a proud Sikh, successful entrepreneur, an infectious Raptors fan, and a great Canadian role model. Nav's remarkable story will be showcased on CBC this Friday. Please join me in welcoming Nav Bhatia to Ottawa today, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is in a real housing crisis. Only New Zealand has worse housing inflation than Canada. Homes aren't getting built, which is making inflation worse. And the Liberal government's out-of-control spending is also making inflation worse. The median price for a house in the City of Toronto went up 33% last year alone, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, if billions in Liberal spending has been making housing more expensive, how is billions more going to make it cheaper?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as outlined in the speech from the throne, housing is a major priority for this government, and we will deliver on it. With programs like the Housing Accelerator Fund, which will help municipalities build more and better, faster. Whether it's building more units per year or increasing affordable housing, we will work with partners to get real results for Canadian families. We'll also help families buy their first home sooner with a more flexible first-time homebuyers incentive and a new rent-to-own program, and by reducing the costs for closing for first-time buyers.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister says it's a priority for this government, but Canada has the largest housing bubble in the world, Mr. Speaker. Canada's inflationary crisis is only getting worse under this government. Just today, RE/MAX stated that housing prices are going to rise another 10% in 2022. Another 10%. And the reason, according to them, Mr. Speaker, quote, the ongoing housing supply shortage. So now we have an inflationary crisis and a housing supply shortage. Why doesn't the Prime Minister have a plan to get houses built?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will take no lessons from the Conservative Party of Canada when it comes to investing in housing. For 10 years under Stephen Harper, they did nothing on housing, which is why we stepped up in 2017 with a national housing strategy and indeed are stepping up now with $4 billion for municipalities to invest and to accelerate the construction of new housing supply, which contrasts with the Conservatives' approach, which was to give massive tax breaks to wealthy landlords to help them sell their buildings. That wouldn't have helped housing costs in Canada. We are acting and we are delivering.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister likes to go back in time to a Conservative government, back when there was a balanced budget, Mr. Speaker, low taxes, Mr. Speaker, and when Canadians weren't falling behind in their monthly payments. And there's no debate when Canadians are going to the gas pump, Mr. Speaker. Fuel prices are setting records. This Prime Minister and the Finance Minister complain about the global supply chain shortage. Want to know the best example of a smooth supply chain, Mr. Speaker? Pipelines. If we could actually get pipelines built in this country, we'd get gas prices down. When will he stop the attacks on our energy sector?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, unlike the Conservatives, we understand that the best way to build a strong economy and a stronger future, including not just good jobs, but good careers for Canadians, is to invest in fighting climate change at the same time as we invest in growing the economy. We have invested to support Alberta workers. We have invested to support getting our oil to new markets. But we have also stepped up on the fight against climate change because that, Mr. Speaker, is what Canadians expect.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président, les Canadiens...
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are experiencing the effects of inflation. Whether it's groceries, gas, beef, chicken, everything's costing more. Even if some products are made here in Canada. Higher expenditures means less opportunities for families and seniors. When will the Prime Minister understand that monetary policy is important? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, from the beginning of the pandemic, we made a promise to Canadians that we would be there for them, and that's exactly what we have done. Even though the Conservatives wanted us to invest less in families, less in workers, less in businesses, less in students, we will be there for them. We will continue to do so because the best way to create a strong economy for everyone is to end the pandemic. And that means everyone needs to be vaccinated. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Be there for them? Last September, 1 million jobs were available in Canada. 1 million. The labour shortage is another issue that's affecting the cost of living. No action on this shortage. When will this government deal with this problem and help Canadians? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. On the contrary, what we're seeing is a faster economic recovery than even in the United States, with more jobs coming back to Canada than in the U.S. We know that the labour shortage that we were experiencing even before the pandemic is persisting today. That's why we're acting on immigration, on training, investing in families, creating jobs, investing in small businesses. We are there to help our economy to recover quickly. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many teaching institutions in Quebec want to welcome African students who speak French. Thousands of Francophone African students want to come to Quebec in order to learn. Unfortunately, Canada's immigration services often refuses about 80%. They're suspected of not being willing to go back home after. It's a form of discrimination. This is undermining Africa's economic development opportunities. Will the Prime Minister deal with this crisis in immigration? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I agree with my honourable colleague that this is particularly worrisome. Discrimination is unacceptable in any form. We will not tolerate systemic discrimination in our programs. To guarantee that our programs and services deal with everyone fairly, we are undergoing a detailed review. We will continue to work closely with provinces, including Quebec, to ensure that our immigration system is robust and fair for everyone. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. That's lovely. And meaningless. The real effect that is being experienced today is that it's undermining French, it's undermining Quebec's teaching institutions, it's undermining French-speaking Africa, undermining these students. A rate of refusal of 80% means there's discrimination. And from what I understand with the Prime Minister, who describes the behavior of Canada's immigration system, is he's saying that there's systemic discrimination. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We've recognized, unlike some others, that systemic discrimination exists in all institutions throughout the country. The work that we have to do, once it is recognized, which we have done, is to work hard to eliminate that discrimination, to transform our systems, and make sure that our immigration system and every other system we have is fair. We have to recognize biases that exist within those systems, and that's the work that we're doing now. We take that very seriously.
Member for Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, the Omicron variant is deeply troubling to Canadians. People are worried about their families, they're worried about their communities. This variant has also shown very clearly that we will not be able to beat this pandemic unless the entire world is vaccinated. So why does the Prime Minister continue to defend the interests and the profits of wealthy pharmaceutical companies rather than ensuring that every country in the world can produce vaccines in their home countries so they can vaccinate their populations?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
First of all, Mr. Speaker, we are working to ensure that countries across the world have access to COVID-19 vaccines through our investments in COVAX facility. We were one of the early adopters and leaders in investing to make sure that vaccine equity across the world was real. Furthermore, Canada is taking leadership at the World Trade Organization to work with the international community on ensuring that the global trading system contributes to removing barriers to vaccine access. We're advancing progress on these issues, which include IP, yes, but also supply chain, production, and export restrictions. We will be there to help end this pandemic everywhere, because without that, we can't end it anywhere.
L'honorable député de Burnaby Sud.
The Prime Minister is literally continuing to defend the profits of pharmaceutical companies. Le variant Omicron de la COVID-19.
The Omicron variant of COVID-19 is so worrisome. People are afraid for their families and communities. But what this variant has demonstrated is that we have to vaccinate everyone in order to overcome this pandemic. Why is the Prime Minister continuing to defend the profits of large pharmaceutical companies instead of defending the interests of countries that are less fortunate and help them improve their capacity to produce vaccines in their own countries? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Not just because he uses literally metaphorically. Le Canada est un leader à l'Organisation mondiale.
Canada is a leader at the WTO, and we continue to work with international communities to make sure that the global trade system contributes to eliminating obstacles to vaccine access. We're continuing to work on this issue. I'm going to interrupt the Prime Minister. I apologize, but I cannot hear him. I will ask him to restart so that we can all hear the answer. Please restart.
Nous sommes tous préoccupés par le virus, le variant Omicron.
We are all worried by the Omicron variant of the virus. That's why we will continue to be there to help with vaccination throughout the world. When it comes to the WTO, we continue to work with the international community to contribute to eliminating obstacles to access to vaccines. This includes working on intellectual property as well as the supply chain, production, and export restrictions. We are determined to find solutions to accelerate production and distribution of vaccines for COVID-19.
Edmonton Riverbend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The average house price in Canada right now is $717,000. You want to know what it was last year, Mr. Speaker? $606,000. That's an 18.2% increase. Now, in 2015, when this Prime Minister came into office, it was $450,000. So to the Prime Minister, under what metric in the world can he explain that his plan is working?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from 2015 onwards, we began to invest in housing in this country that had been underinvested in by the federal government for many years. We came forward with the National Housing Strategy in 2017 that has led to hundreds of thousands of families getting into new homes. We further built on initiatives with like the first-time homebuyers incentive, like the Rapid Housing Initiative, and we've just put forward a $4 billion investment towards municipalities to help build more supply. And this contrasts with the Conservative plan to give tax breaks to wealthy landlords. Mr. Speaker, we are acting to fight this housing crisis.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Riverbend.
So, Mr. Speaker, what he just said is that he's offloading all the responsibility onto the provinces and the municipalities. Now, who he's going to blame once that fails? The provinces and the municipalities. Now, Conservatives had a plan in the last election, and it was to sell off 15% of federal government assets to increase supply. So my question to the Prime Minister, when will he get off his assets and help Canadian families?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, while the Conservatives play partisan attacks, we focus on Canadians. We actually are moving forward with a $4 billion investment in municipalities to support the rapid advancement of housing, the building of supply, the working beyond even the Rapid Housing Initiative we've moved forward on. We've signed landmark deals with the provinces across the country on investing in housing. We will continue to be there for first-time home buyers with a dedicated program with also the ability to reduce costs on closing ownership. There are many initiatives we're putting forward because we know there isn't any one silver bullet to fix this. It is a comprehensive approach, and that's what we're doing.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
But the more he spends, the more it costs. The housing prices have gone from $450,000 under the last year of the Conservative government to $716,000 under this government, up 32% in just over a year. We now have the biggest housing bubble in the world outside of New Zealand, and Toronto and Vancouver are the fifth and second most expensive housing markets in the world, ahead of Manhattan, San Francisco, London, and others. So if this Prime Minister is not to blame, then exactly what is causing this housing price inflation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
One has to at least recognize that the Conservatives are consistent in their approach and that they want to do less whenever they're confronted with a problem. Canadians are challenged with a housing crisis right now, and we are moving forward with programs to help first-time homebuyers, to invest money for municipalities so that they can cut red tape and build more supply, to work with the provinces on initiatives that are going to bring forward more housing and tie it into rapid transit. These are initiatives we're putting forward. The Conservatives' answer, well, you have to do less then. Well, that is unfortunately the kind of austerity that they continue to push despite the fact that Canadians need help.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, when Conservatives were in office, it cost less to own a home. The average family could buy a place for $450,000, not the $720,000 of today. Why are prices rising so suddenly? Well, the amount of wealthy landlords buying houses went up by 100% since March of 2020, according to the Bank of Canada. What happened in March of 2020? That was when flooding the mortgage system and ballooning housing costs. When will they stop flooding the market with cheap cash for wealthy landlords?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
First of all, Mr. Speaker, I recommend that the member opposite take a careful look at the Bank of Canada's independent mandate around monetary policy, which on this side of the House we respect. Secondly, it's interesting that the member opposite brings up wealthy landlords, because the heart of the plan they put forward and he defended in that last election was about giving wealthy landlords a tax break to help them sell their buildings. Nothing for families, nothing for affordable housing, Mr. Speaker. That was the Conservative plan. And again, they're complaining that we're doing too much to help families. Mr. Speaker, we will keep doing more.
L'honorable député de Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis.
Monsieur le Président, pendant que le gouvernement... Mr. Speaker, while the government of Quebec is making a major effort and launching Operation Workforce with a game plan to counter the labor shortage, the government is just watching the parade go by and doesn't seem to understand the situation. Businesses are slowing down production because they don't have enough people to fill the 280,000 vacant positions in Quebec. Can the Prime Minister show leadership, look to Quebec's example, and take this labor shortage seriously? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the labor shortage is very real, but it was in place before the pandemic started. That's why we're going to continue to increase immigration rates. We've been doing so for years, and we will continue to invest in more immigration, more training, investing youth that have been impacted by the pandemic, helping small businesses to grow, help them offer better salaries. We will be there to help with the economy bounce back, and that means fighting the labor shortage. The honourable member for Lévis-Sept-Chemin-Bellechasse-Lévis. When it comes to immigration, last week I indicated that Rotobec, a company in my riding, is trying to fill 30 positions right now, about 10 through immigration. I was told that, again, Rotobec is going to have to wait months and months and months before being able to fill those positions and have access to workers from abroad. When will the Prime Minister help our businesses and finally put in place measures to set up measures to help process workers' immigration files? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to say that my honourable colleague should speak to her other honourable colleague for Carleton, who keeps complaining that we're doing too much. And she wants us to do more, and so we'll continue to do more. We recognize how important it is to invest in immigration and accelerate the arrival of new Canadians. This pandemic has impacted us for a year and a half and led to border closures, but we're going to make up for that backlog, bring more people to Canada, and we're going to create growth for all. We'll work with Quebec and the other provinces in order to counter this labor shortage. The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, when the federal government banned irregular border crossings via Roxham Road, asylum seekers started using other, more dangerous routes. Something had to be done. And what did the government do? Did it suspend the Safe Third Country Agreement to allow asylum seekers to go through regular safe border crossings? No. They reopened Roxham Road. They reopened Roxham, and we're back to square one with the same situation as before the pandemic. Does the Prime Minister not agree that this isn't the solution? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we continue to work with our American partners on immigration and the issue of asylum seekers. We will continue to be there to manage this situation correctly. Our government has maintained close contact with provincial counterparts in order to deal with changes at the border, and we've set up procedures to ensure that asylum seekers will be subject to strict public safety measures, including COVID-19 tests. We are working closely with our counterparts. The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, we have the solution. It's in Section 10, Paragraph 3 of the Safe Third Country Agreement. The Prime Minister can unilaterally suspend it for 3 months and renew that suspension as long as necessary without asking for anyone's permission. This is safe for asylum seekers, reassuring for the public, and relieves the burden on Quebec, which is handling 97% of Canada's irregular claims. Will the Prime Minister suspend the agreement instead of reopening Roxham and reviving the same old problem? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we're doing what is necessary to ensure the safety of all Canadians when it comes to COVID and meeting our international obligations regarding asylum seekers. The resources necessary to control or to verify and carefully monitor asylum seekers are in place. We're working closely with the Government of Quebec and the American administration to ensure that the situation remains under control.
Canadian companies are losing contracts around the world because the Liberals have failed to address the shipping container crisis, which worsens every single day. Agricultural products, manufactured goods are bottlenecked at ports in Vancouver and Montreal. The United States has taken action, and shipping routes are being rerouted from Canada to the United States. The Liberals are continuing to erode Canada's reputation as a reliable and trusted trading partner. Why has the Prime Minister refused to open an investigation under the Canadian Transportation Act to resolve this crisis?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, COVID has disrupted supply chains. The recent extreme weather events in BC have further disrupted supply chains. That's why we have stepped up, including with an investment of over $4 million directly to the Port of Vancouver to help ease the backlog. We know there's more work to do in the short term, and we are doing it with partners, including the Government of BC. But there's also work to do in the long term. And I know that the members of the Conservative Party of Canada are beginning to understand we need to act with determination and solidity on the fight against climate change. I'm glad to see them beginning to recognize that.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
This has nothing to do with climate change or global shipping lanes. The United States have resolved this crisis, and shipping lanes are now moving to the United States from Canada. I suppose the Prime Minister also thinks the ban on PEI potatoes is a result of supply chains around the world. Hundreds of islanders have lost their jobs, and the livelihoods of farm families hang in the balance. Now they're told there's no guarantee that this issue will be resolved before Christmas. This is unacceptable. When will the Prime Minister understand this isn't a little potato problem, it is a big potato problem, and our entire industry is at risk? When will he do something to address this export ban?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Islanders are suffering right now and are worried, and the Conservatives are making jokes. This is a serious, serious situation, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to step up to defend Prince Edward Islanders and the potatoes they produce. That is why we've taken initiatives with the United States to put a hold on it so that we remain in control of the situation. We have Islanders' backs. We will continue to be there to fight for them, despite all the silly jokes made by the Conservatives.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, a little bit concerned. These are the words of the Prime Minister when he was asked about President Biden's proposed tax rebate for electric cars that excludes the ones made right here in Canada. A little bit concerned about the tens of thousands of Canadian jobs in jeopardy. A little bit concerned about our second largest export. The Americans are walking all over this Prime Minister. And what is it going to take for him to show a lot of concern for the Canadians who are out of work because of his lack of courage?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as we did for steel and aluminum workers with measures that the Leader of the Opposition called dumb, we are continuing to stand up for Canada's electric vehicle industry and its workers. I raised the issue directly with President Biden and congressional leaders in Washington just a couple of weeks ago. I made it clear to them that this policy would have significant negative consequences, not just on Canada, but on the U.S. auto industry. Canada and the U.S. have a shared priority of protecting our cross-border supply chains. We will keep pressing the United States on this important issue.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
To do with supply chains, President Biden has enhanced the Buy America measures. He's strengthened his protectionist agenda. He's raised tariffs on Canada. Under this Prime Minister, our relationship with the strongest ally has become our biggest failure. The Prime Minister went to Washington. He lost the fight on lumber. He lost the fight on farmers. He's about to lose the fight on auto workers, and he didn't even bother to put up a fight for the workers in the energy sector. Is the Prime Minister even trying anymore?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite should know that our auto sector is all about supply chains, and that's exactly what we've been working on with the United States to demonstrate to them at which point the integration between the Canadian and the American economy, the Canadian and American supply chains, is something that is important not just for Canadian jobs, but for American jobs as well. We stood up for steel workers. We stood up for aluminum workers, despite the capitulation proposed by the Conservative Party of Canada. We have continued to stand up for Canadians. We will continue to stand up for Canadian workers.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
We are in the midst of a climate crisis, and we've seen the devastating impacts of this crisis in BC. We know we need to act immediately. The Environmental Commissioner has pointed out that the Liberal government subsidies are actually not working to reduce emissions as they've claimed. In fact, it's not working at all. So why won't this Prime Minister end the fossil fuel subsidies once and for all and invest that money into renewable energy, into workers, and to reducing our emissions and protecting our environment?
Honourable Prime Minister.
That is exactly what we are doing, Mr. Speaker. We've committed to ending fossil fuel subsidies. At the same time, we have made historic investments in the energy sector transformation, in support for workers across the country, in renewables, in the kind of future that we know doesn't just lead to cleaner air and clean water, but better jobs and careers for Canadians going forward. We put forward the most ambitious plan to fight climate change that any party has ever put forward in the last election, recognized by experts as being significantly stronger even than the NDP plan, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
That's more rhetoric with no action. We are in a climate crisis that's hitting hard. We've seen disastrous results in BC. We have to act. The Environment Commissioner clearly said that subsidies to the oil patch are not helping reduce emissions. So why doesn't the Prime Minister stop subsidizing oil companies right away, immediately? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, a few weeks ago in Glasgow, we announced our intention to eliminate fossil fuel subsidies by 2023. 2 years before our G20 partners' goal, which is 2025. We also announced that Canada would stop financing international projects relating to fossil fuels. On this side of the House, we know that climate action is necessary, and the fight against climate change requires efforts from each and every one of us.
Mr. Speaker, since the recent election just over 2 months ago, community leaders, residents, and groups such as Pride Toronto in my riding of Davenport have been writing to me and encouraging our federal government to rapidly reintroduce a bill which would implement a ban on the harmful practice of conversion therapy. Can the Prime Minister please update this House on Bill C-4 and the importance of banning conversion therapy for all Canadians?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I want to thank the member for Davenport for her advocacy on this issue. Just like her, I've heard from conversion therapy survivors, and anyone who has knows this horrid practice must end. This week, we introduced even stronger legislation to ban conversion therapy. Last Parliament, more than half of the Conservative caucus voted against a ban. Unfortunately, the Leader of the Opposition has already signaled he'll let them do so again. Today, I call on all members to stand in support of LGBTQ2 Canadians by supporting this bill.
Honourable Member for Calgary, Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, earlier in question period, the Conservative leader asked the Prime Minister when he would stand up for workers in Canada's energy sector. And the Prime Minister responded by implying that energy jobs in Canada aren't good careers. So I'll give him the opportunity to clarify. Does he believe that those who work in Canada's rapidly decarbonizing fair trade energy sector, people who work hard to power Canada as we move towards a low carbon economy, does he believe that they have, quote, good jobs.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for giving me the opportunity to repeat here in this House something I've said many, many times. We don't reach net zero by 2050 unless the extraordinarily hard workers of Alberta's energy sector are part of it. We don't get there unless we can lean on the innovation, the hard work, the imagination, the creativity, and the drive of Albertans and Saskatchewanians and Newfoundlander and Labradorians in the energy sector to make sure we're going in the right direction. And I look forward to continuing to work with them to build a better future and better jobs for all of our kids.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
That's interesting because the Prime Minister is actually encouraging Canadians to use energy from high-carbon, unethical sources like Saudi Arabia. Canadian energy is rapidly decarbonizing its production. Until there are readily available, low-cost alternatives to high-carbon products, Canadian energy should be filling that gap. So, why hasn't the Prime Minister, if he cares about Canadian energy workers so much, put caps on the importation of unethical, high-carbon, foreign carbon products from Saudi Arabia and Venezuela when Alberta is already providing decarbonized, carbon emission capped, fair trade energy?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, throughout this crisis and indeed the years leading up to it, we have been working with the energy sector in Alberta to move forward on decarbonization initiatives, to do things like addressing orphan wells, to do things like investing in methane reductions. Indeed, at Glasgow, we made one of the world-leading commitments, not just to reduce our methane emissions by 30%, but to cut methane emissions from the oil and gas sector by 75%, Mr. Speaker. This is the kind of leadership that we can only do in partnership with the extraordinary workers in Canada's energy sector who are looking for a better future for their kids as well.
Bravo. The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Greenhouse gas emissions in Canada have actually grown each and every year this government has been in power, and the amount of jobs in Canada, particularly in our natural resource sector, has decreased, being offshore to other countries that don't have ethical standards like we do. We're going to need a lot of rare earth minerals in order to build things like batteries for electric power cars, but we know that in certain countries, child labor is what supports the mining of those particular minerals. Will the Prime Minister commit to sourcing rare earth minerals for the batteries that power Canadian electric cars from fair trade Canadian mines, as opposed to offshoring our jobs to child foreign labor?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
For a number of years now, we've been working on our critical minerals partnerships around the world to demonstrate that, yes, there is an alternative to minerals from China right here from in Canada, whether it's cobalt or nickel or lithium or copper or other metals that are essential in the production of the technologies we use every day and will lean on even more into the future. Canada can be a strong, safe, reliable supplier of these minerals to ourselves and to our allies around the world. That is exactly what we are moving forward on, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
The problem is that the world is not investing in Canada because that Prime Minister chases away investment in our ethical sources of energy. And frankly, I think that his record on this is abysmal. I want to remind him something. Good jobs are ethical, regulated jobs in Canada's natural resource sector. Bad jobs are those that are children in cobalt mines in other parts of the world. Bad jobs that are those given to countries where gay men are murdered and women aren't seen as people. Those are bad jobs. Bad jobs there, good jobs here. When will the Prime Minister commit to supporting the workers in Alberta's energy sector?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, through this pandemic, we stepped up with $9 out of $10 going to Albertans from the federal government during the pandemic. In the years leading up to it, we continued to invest in infrastructure, in supports for Albertans. We've continued to be there for workers in the energy sector. You know what is not being there for workers in the energy sector? Pretending that climate change isn't real. Pretending that we shouldn't look at it as both a challenge and an opportunity, because that's what the Conservative Party of Canada has been stuck with for the past decade.
The honourable member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, the lowest paid seniors have been plunged into poverty by Ottawa. Those who lost their job during the pandemic and who had to claim the CERB are getting their GIS clawed back because CERB benefits are treated differently from employment income, even though they're supposed to do just that, replace employment income. For example, for the same $10,000 in income, a worker who would have had $100 clawed back from the GIS now loses over $400. That's $300 less per month. Will the Prime Minister fix this injustice? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, from the outset of the pandemic, we made a promise to Canadians that we would be there for them for as long as it took and whatever it took. And that's precisely what we're doing. Our promise has always been to support the most vulnerable. We put in place the CERB or the CERB. We knew that would have an impact on some of our most vulnerable. Ministers are working actively on that issue to find the right solution. We will always be there to protect our seniors, including with the GIS. The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, that's not what we're talking about. The Bloc alerted the Ministers of Seniors and Finance months ago. Nothing's been done. The Prime Minister has to get involved. The CERB should be treated like employment income, and all seniors should be allowed to have their benefits recalculated based on their current income. It's simple. This administrative mess is plunging people into poverty, and some are suffering a decline in their health. Mr. Speaker, there are even some seniors who are having to choose which of their medications to skip because they can no longer afford them. Is the Prime Minister going to take charge of this file? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we've always been there for our seniors, and we always will be. I can assure you that we're working on this matter, and we will resolve it very soon. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has a problem with his priorities. Last week, he once again approved illegal entries via Roxham Road. But he hasn't kept his commitment to repatriate 40,000 Afghan refugees. He'll do anything to encourage illegal migrants, but for actual refugees, we're still waiting. When will this Prime Minister bring these refugees here? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we care deeply about the Afghan people, as we always have. We'll always be there to receive 40,000 Afghan nationals. It's quite a challenge, as the Honourable Member opposite knows full well. The Taliban is hindering access to the airport and the borders to allow people to leave the country safely. We will continue to work with our partners in the region and our international partners to welcome those Afghan refugees. But for those expecting more, we will be there to help those Afghan families. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister says there are complications in the field, but when you make a commitment, there should be a date. Can we know how long it's going to take to pull this feat off? Because every day those people are in danger of being killed by the Taliban. When is Canada going to take care of them? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada will be there for them. We are showing our extraordinary generosity, the generosity of Canadians in wanting to protect people who are facing atrocious, terrible situations for their family and their country. That's why we're working with our regional partners to put pressure on the Taliban in order to get access for these refugees to come to Canada. We're working at a higher level than almost any other country in the world to make that generosity of Canadians a reality, and we can be very proud of that. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, I repeat my question. Can the Prime Minister be more specific? Can he set a date? Can we hear what the timeline is going to be? How many of those refugees have already come to Canada, and how many more are we going to take? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thousands of refugees have come to Canada, and we have a lot more to do, and that's why we continue putting pressure, together with our international allies, pressure on the Taliban to make it possible for people to leave the country and come to countries like Canada who are ready to welcome them. We're ready to take up to 40,000. That's what Canadians want, and that's what we will do together. The Honourable Member for Outremont. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our economic recovery is coming along nicely thanks to our high vaccination rate, and the supports put in place by our government, including the wage subsidy and the small business emergency account, to name but a few. And we're seeing the results now with strong economic growth in this third quarter. Could the Prime Minister perhaps enlighten our colleagues in the opposition on the state of the economy and more specifically our latest job numbers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for Outremont and congratulate her on her getting re-elected. COVID has had quite an impact on Canadians and on small businesses all across the country, but our approach to fighting the COVID recession is working. Canada has regained 101% of the jobs lost versus only 81% in the U.S. We will keep on supporting our workers and businesses to finish the fight against COVID and bounce back well.
Mr. Speaker, when Afghanistan fell to the Taliban earlier this year, thousands of Afghans who worked alongside our troops were led to believe by this Prime Minister that Canada would keep them safe. National Defence has received over 23,000 applications from Afghan interpreters and support staff who served with us. Yet the Department of Immigration and Refugees is only processing 14,500 applications. That means that over 9,000 Afghan interpreters and support staff have not been invited to apply. Wow. So when will the Prime Minister bring to Canada the 40,000 Afghan nationals he promised?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada remains firm in its commitment to welcome 40,000 Afghan refugees to Canada. We're working tirelessly to stay in support and contact with those who remain in Afghanistan and wish to resettle to Canada. IRCC has mobilized its entire global network to process visas and issue them on an urgent basis. We will continue to do everything we can to help the people of Afghanistan, not because this government wants to, which we do, but because Canadians expect us to do that. That's exactly why we're doing it.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
I can tell you, the Prime Minister, that Canada's veterans have stepped up and done more than their share to protect their Afghan friends who were left behind. They set up safe houses and kept hundreds of Afghan interpreters and their families safe. But when these veteran-operated safe houses came to the government and asked for $5 million, these Liberals said no. Our Afghan friends were forced to leave, and now they're trying to escape the clutches of the Taliban. So I'll ask the Prime Minister again, can the Prime Minister tell this House and the 40,000 Afghan refugees exactly when they can expect to come to Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the largest and most difficult hurdle in getting people out of Afghanistan remains the lack of a safe, secure routes out of the country. We will continue to do everything we can for the people of Afghanistan, and I want to recognize and thank all those organizations, whether they're veterans organizations or NGOs, who've been there to support the Canadian troops on the ground, the IRCC officials who've been there to support Afghans as they get out of the country. We will be welcoming 40,000 to Canada. We're going to keep pushing on the Taliban to ensure the people have safe access out of the country.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, our veterans and all those non-government organizations had to step up because this government hasn't. Our Afghan interpreters and support staff have been left behind to face the brutality of the Taliban, who are hunting them down as we speak. Our veterans are doing everything they can in their power to get them out of harm's way, including chartering their own planes to bring them to safe third countries. But it seems the Prime Minister only cared about this when it was happening during the election. So on behalf of our veterans, on behalf of the members of the Canadian Armed Forces, on behalf of the 40,000 Afghan nationals who he promised to bring to Canada, exactly what date will the Prime Minister bring these Afghans to Canada?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are working tirelessly to bring those 40,000 Afghan refugees to Canada as quickly as possible. We're working with the international community to put pressure on the Taliban to allow for more safe routes out of the country. We have demonstrated our ability to welcome them in, and I would remind the honourable member who was around for the election of 2015, when his government turned their back on Syrian refugees, the Canadians stepped up and brought in 40,000 Syrian refugees in a matter of months in those first months of 2015, 2016. That's why we stepped up, and we will do exactly the same right now for Afghanistan. So I'll take no lessons from that Conservative Party.
The honourable member for Surrey Newton.
Mr. Speaker, this past summer, my province of British Columbia was hit by devastating wildfires. Now, in recent weeks, heavy rains have brought flooding and landslides to communities across the interior and Fraser Valley. This has taken the lives of at least 4 people and damaged countless homes, businesses, and family farms. Can the Prime Minister update this House what our government is doing to support the people of British Columbia during this difficult time?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable colleague from Surrey Newton for the question and for his hard work in supporting his colleagues in British Columbia. British Columbians can be assured that we will always be there for them in the face of devastating natural disasters like the recent flooding. Canadian Armed Forces are on the ground, and we're collaborating with the BC government on the immediate response and eventual rebuilding. We're further matching every dollar donated to the Red Cross alongside the province, turning every dollar Canadians donate into 3. Our government remains committed to helping the people of BC through the immediate response to this crisis and into recovery. We will be there for British Columbians.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
Today is World AIDS Day, and I think about so many Canadians who have lost loved ones, people close to them, to HIV/AIDS. And what's worse is we have all the tools right now to be able to completely eradicate HIV/AIDS. What we're lacking is a plan that particularly addresses the barriers faced by vulnerable people, the most vulnerable people. So my question to the Prime Minister is, why doesn't Canada have a plan to completely, once and for all, eradicate HIV/AIDS?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, a number of years ago, we signed on to the Global Compact to eliminate HIV/AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis. We are working together internationally with colleagues and partners to do just that, even as we continue to step up in our efforts at home to ensure that we're supporting people living with HIV/AIDS and preventing further tragedies and challenges around that. We have come a long way as a country in fighting the stigmatization around HIV/AIDS. We've come a long way from the first days we were celebrating December 1st, and I'm glad to see so many members of this House standing as allies alongside not just the LGBTQ2 community, but others who are suffering the impacts of HIV/AIDS.
That's all the time we have for today. C'est tout le temps que nous avons.
That's all the time we have today for question period. We have a point of order, the honourable member for Monterville. Mr. Speaker, there were consultations among the party, and I think if you seek it, you will find there is unanimous consent for the following motion: that this House congratulates Barbados for breaking free from the British monarchy.
Puisqu'il s'agit d'une séance.
Since this is a hybrid sitting of the House, I would ask only those who are opposed to the request expressed by this member to speak. Accordingly,
Singing is, unless it's the national anthem and it's the right time, singing should not be done in the chamber. Par conséquent.
Accordingly, all those opposed to the motion by the honourable member will say nay. We do not have unanimous consent.
The honourable member for Fundy Royal is raising on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm asking today for unanimous consent from this House to adopt the following motion: that notwithstanding any standing order or our usual practices of the House, Bill C4, an act to amend the Criminal Code, conversion therapy, be deemed to have been read a second time and referred to a committee of the whole, deemed considered in committee of the whole, deemed reported without amendment, deemed concurred in at the report stage, and deemed read a third time and passed. Thank you.
How does it work? L'honorable député.
The honourable member for La Prairie has a point of order. Yes, it's because the French interpretation wasn't working when my colleague read the motion in question.
I'll have to ask the honourable member for Fundy Royal to repeat it in English, and we'll hopefully have, is the translation working? It's working now. Please repeat the request.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm asking for unanimous consent to adopt the following motion, that notwithstanding any standing order or usual practices of the House, Bill C-4, an act to amend the Criminal Code, conversion therapy, be deemed to have been read a second time and referred to a committee of the whole, deemed considered in committee of the whole, deemed reported without amendment, deemed concurred in at the report stage, and deemed read a third time and passed.
This being a hybrid sitting of the House, for the sake of clarity, I will only ask those who are opposed to the request to express their disagreement. Accordingly, all those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay. Agreed. The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those opposed to the motion will please say nay. There being no dissenting voice, I declare the motion carried.
I have the honour to inform the House that the following members have been appointed as members of the Board of Internal Economy for the purposes and under the provisions of the Parliament of Canada Act, subsection 52.
Mr. LeBlanc, the Honourable Mr. Holland, members of the Privy Council, the Honourable Mr. McKinnon, Gatineau, and Honourable Ms. Sahota, representative of the Government Caucus. Monsieur Deltel,
Mr. Deltel,
representatives of the Conservative Party, Madame de Bellefeuille,
Ms. de Bellefeuille, representative of the Bloc Québécois Caucus,
Julian, représentant du caucus,
Mr. Julian, representative of the New Democratic Caucus.
Tabling of documents. Il est de mon devoir de déposer sur le bureau conformément.
It is my duty to lay on the table, pursuant to subsection 94.2 of the Access to Information Act and to subsection 72.2 of the Privacy Act, the reports of the Auditor General of Canada for the fiscal year ended on the administration of these acts for the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2021.
To Standing Orders, Order 1083H, these reports are deemed to have been permanently referred to the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics. Dépôt de projet de loi émanant du gouvernement. Statement